A twin suggests a reflection, while a flame ignites and burns what is no longer needed for the journey ahead. Hey y'all, I am Victory. I help provide insight to empower, and today I wanted to talk about relationships and what it is that we're truly discovering on our path forward, on our path back to home, back to ourselves. So this excerpt comes from Matt Kahn, mattkahn.org, one of his blogs. And if you're on the spiritual journey and if you've heard of this thing called a twin flame, there can be a lot of confusion on the term, on the subject, as was the case for me, my sister, and a lot of people that I come across. So the twin flame, this reflection of ourselves, this type of relationship that can feel very energetically charged, very in line with activating the stress hormone addiction within ourselves, is at once kind of an illusion, kind of a mirage, and a signpost on our path, on our trajectory, on our journey, that is not our exit. And yet, because it's so emotionally charged, so energetically charged, it can seem like, a stop that we want to make, maybe even some kind of a rest stop, if that's what we feel we need, especially in terms of learning and growing as people. Continuing on with the excerpt, a soul is your individuated expression of divinity, and a mate refers to the play of physical form, where our true eternal essence expresses as the truth of it all throughout a union of divine characters or counterparts. For some, it might seem contrary to their known definitions, but as these terms are redefined, clarity, healing, and resolve can be delivered to those whose spiritual aspirations have been stifled by codependent relationships, guilty, cycles of grief, definitely, and emotional turmoil. What I mean by stress hormone addiction, it's the familiar known, it's the devil we know. The essence of redefining these terms is not relying on external relationships, no matter how energetically charged they seem to be. So you may recognize each encounter as a gift that brings to life the soulmate of your highest form, of your highest self in form. This invites you to discover true liberation, autonomy, and communion within the oneness of your own divine heart space. As you cultivate wholeness in yourself, you are able to draw toward you an external reality that matches your internal state of being, instead of a world that appears in contrast to your highest truth. And this specifically resonates for me as a healer, or as the healing type of person, where I would attract, wounded birds, Captain Sable-Ho mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're constantly attracting emotionally unavailable partners, it may seem, under the old mindset, that this is a person who needs your healing presence, rather than somebody who needs to work their own shit out. And reflecting back to us, that exact thing, that we need to work out this kink for ourselves, on ourselves, of wanting to find value in somebody else by being their healer, rather than continuing on working on ourselves, and as a result, attract a partner who is also working on themselves. And I had two memes that I wanted to share as a result of my experiences. I wanted to say, like, as the last relationship that I was in, but also the last one before that, and also the ones before that. Because when I did attract a soulmate, there was also like, I was also coming from a wounded place. Meaning that this person, like it says in the excerpt, wasn't just burning away the parts of me that I no longer needed for the journey ahead. They were. But they were also like teaching me. They were reflecting back to me all the things that I believed that were good, that were coming from a sense of wholeness. When I asked her out, it wasn't from a sense of, I hope they say yes and approve and validate because they're so hot in my mind. It was from the quietest part of me, the truest part of me, that I asked her out. It was coming from a sense, a foundation of a part of me that I hadn't begun to value quite yet. It was coming from a place of peace and unknowingly seeing that this person had tremendous value, had great integrity to their values and to their dream. Now, in a sense, that's the kind of person that I've been attracting, is someone who has tremendous integrity to their values and to their goals. In another sense, on a different level, I was still tremendously wounded and feeling like I wasn't enough. And so from there, even when this person told me that she loved me, it wasn't a stress hormone addiction, toxic, codependent kind of love, so I didn't believe it. It didn't get me so tremendously high. Therefore, in my old mind, in my own mindset, it must not be true love, which couldn't be further from the truth. It was the healthiest form of love, but because that's not something that I was used to seeing, having modeled for me, or looking for, I completely missed it. Now, in the last relationship, maybe like the last two, I felt like a puppy. I felt so tremendously loving and joyful and supportive and enthused. And I also was still working through some stuff of feeling like I'm too much, which comes, going 13 layers deep. It comes from, my relationship with my primary care providers and how they were struggling with their own unresolved traumas. And so whenever I had wants or needs, basic needs like food, a little bit of attention, unconditional love, they were mentally, emotionally checked out, battling their own depression, schizophrenia, and attachment, their own stuff. So being rejected in those moments that I needed something or wanted something led me to believe for a long time, to act from the belief that I should not have wants and needs, or that when I have wants and needs, they will automatically not be met. So avoid that pain by acting in such a way that we can get by without wants and needs. And if we have wants and needs, that's being too much. So feeling like a puppy and feeling like so loving and excited to have found, someone who said yes to me, who I initially thought was out of my league, or would have traditionally said no. It was a girl with really cute girl with a nice figure and blue eyes. And me having my history from childhood, from very early childhood, having my experiences kind of, embedded with some moments of racial discrimination, my inner child believed she would never say yes to me. The previous one before that too. So where my inner child would say, this person's automatically going to say no, and me being there for him and taking risks, taking leaps, having disconfirming experiences to help me overcome my previous limiting beliefs. I asked her out, asked her for a number. She said yes. We started going out. Now, me as like someone who's done a lot of healing work on myself and with others, it is very easy for me to come from a loving place of compassion and joy. Now, this first meme is kind of what that touches on. It is what that touches on. So you absolutely have to become okay with not being liked. No matter how loving or kind you are, you will never people please your way into collective acceptance. It could be a whole ray of sunshine, and people will hate you because they're used to rain. Be okay with shining regardless. Now, in our early talks with the last girl I dated, she was talking about moving to Seattle a lot, which is notorious. If you haven't heard of this, it's notorious for being a place that's rainy and clouded about 90% of the time. It has a very high suicide rate. We as people need sunshine. We need light, sunlight hitting us directly. Look up like light exposure apps or sunlight apps. They're apps that, you know, you can take like a little picture of your surrounding environment or the outside. Light meter app, and it'll give you a number of how much sunlight is coming in. Chicago, I've taken pictures of like inside my room, around the house, and outside during the winter, during the summer, and very low light comes in, maybe 50, 60, 70 during the cloudier and winter days here in Chicago. Ideally, 50, 60, 70, not great. We're looking for about 200. Yeah, we're looking for about like a number that reaches around 200 for us to have a like bare minimum like 2 minutes of direct exposure from sunlight to develop and secrete the chemicals that help regulate our sleep cycle and emotional state towards one of happiness. So in that way, in recharging, in charging ourselves with sunlight, we're cultivating, like a garden, we're cultivating the potential and probability for greater and greater happiness and positivity, let's say, throughout our day. So Seattle being that place, that they're there, and just also based on like the other talks that we had about how she came up, how she was raised, there was a lot of like her being used to the rain, her being used to kind of being shit on, her dreams being shit on, being worked against. And so, me coming with that like positive puppy dog energy of play and childlike joy, open curiosity, really wanting to get to know somebody else. It was repelling for her, because where she's used to a dynamic in which people give her something to overcome, people fight against her so that she knows what she needs to be working to the bone towards. I was somebody who wanted to come along and cheer her on and support her and be a more positive example of potentially a healthier love. And that happened in the relationship before that one, where the girl really valued her boundaries. She had really troublesome, like kind of heartbreaking, like me, like not even having gone through it, just hearing about it, heartbreaking experiences where one of her partners would not let her have conversations. That's how toxic and damaging that relationship was. Me, I wanted to get to know her. I wanted to hear her speak. I wanted to hear her sing, and she would say things like, it sounds like, I think it's like cats fighting in a bag or dying in a bag when she sang. It spoke to how her experiences were such that she did not feel safe or comfortable speaking what she really felt. And so it would come out in really like hurtful or passive aggressive ways, in very self-defensive ways, that ultimately damaged and I would say like helped to end that relationship. I was also coming from a place that I still needed to heal and work on myself, namely overthinking and fleeing, to where like if I felt like the relationship was not going to, I couldn't feel safe in the relationship, then in my mind there was no other way to work through it, and so I had to like show up for myself by walking away, by leaving, instead of learning the 4 steps of nonviolent communication, which I've covered in a different video. This is me signaling to myself, link the video here. But just really quickly, what they did that I didn't like, how I felt about what they did, the needs or wants that were going on unmet, and a request. So in that case, it was, what they were doing was communicating very passive aggressively, very hurtfully, coming from a wounded place. How I felt about it was that I felt hurt, and it didn't feel kind. It felt very unkind for her to be communicating to me in a way that was defensive. That was her protecting herself by hurting me, by like lashing out. If you picture like a cornered, cat or something, and they don't feel safe. And if you're like trying to give them food, or like if they're hurt and you're like, I don't know, trying like to bandage a wound or get them to a vet or something, and they like lash out at you. So the thing that I didn't like, how I felt about it, the need or want that was going unmet, was just to be spoken to, in a way that was more respectful, and for her to see that it was, especially in retrospect, that she was not feeling safe in that moment. So the request would have been for her to like just be aware of that. Like not even to change, but just to like be aware, this is what's going on, this is how I'm perceiving and experiencing your presence, like at that moment. Another request would have been like, hey, things are getting really charged right now. I'm gonna go into the other room, decompress, collect myself, ground, and come back to you. Or I could go for a walk, and we could like just collect ourselves and then come back to this and see where we're at. Having lost her because I didn't know how to communicate that was so painful that I went out of my way to buy a book, read it, and learn about nonviolent communication. and why, and dig deep into myself as to like, where did I learn to walk away from a problem? My dad. Where did I learn that that was the appropriate response rather than, communicating effectively? Now, with this last person that I was with, there were also abandonment wounds that needed to be addressed, burned away, as it says, right? A flame ignites and burns what is no longer needed for the journey ahead. And for me, that is definitely true. Or was true at that time, of how, and true in the last two examples, of how whenever we were separated, whenever we were apart, I would get very anxious. My mind would go to the worst places about what they were doing, and there was extreme discomfort within myself. And sitting in that discomfort is the flame igniting and burning away. It feels like a really intense sensation, very much like burning. So and this really applies if you have abandonment and neglect wounds within yourself. If you're watching this video, I imagine you might be. When we're apart from that person and we feel a lot of anxiety and we want to reach out to them and check in with them, really keep tabs, or at least get reassurance from them that they're not betraying us, that they're not going to abandon us. Sitting with that discomfort instead of acting on it is that sort of fire burning away the old programming. So when you feel abandonment, anxiety coming, and the self-sabotage arising, say this: 1, they're busy. 2, they did not leave. They will tell me if they want to. 3, space is necessary. 4, they do not always have to respond. They don't always have to respond. That is us trying to control based on how we're feeling and our own issues that we need to work on ourselves. 5, I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. We did not do anything wrong to drive them away. What would be doing something wrong is acting impulsively and mindlessly from that place of woundedness without first sitting with it. 6, it is okay to be alone. It is okay to be alone. They're busy. They did not leave. They will tell me if they want to. That's the one that I wanted to touch on. Was what I've realized is that one of the biggest healing factors playing into this that we need to cultivate and develop is self-esteem and self-worth. It touches on having values and orientation within yourself. Mainly, and namely, if this person does end up betraying us, 1, that speaks about their character, not our self-worth. If they are cheating on us or leaving us, or they're acting out of their integrity, or they're not meeting our values, our standards that we are allowed to have for ourselves, standards, we get to walk away. We get to not have to put up with that. We get to, in saying no to them, attract someone who is far more in line with what we want and what we need. Again, touching on wants and needs. We are allowed to have wants and needs, and to have those wants and needs met by somebody. And when somebody doesn't meet them, we're allowed to lovingly, compassionately say, you are not for me. I appreciate our time together, but I'm looking for somebody who is willing to meet my standards, to match values, and who is going to respect and love me in a way that I like. And that's part of a secure attachment style. The kind of attachment style that says, when love comes in, I don't resist it, I don't fight it, I don't fear it, I welcome it. I love it in return. And if that love ever has to leave because it betrayed me, because it neglected me, because it wasn't respecting me, or because, they moved away, life said, this has served its purpose and staying together would work against you, we allow that love to leave. And maybe it hurts like hell, but we're willing to sit with it and love ourselves through it. Twin flames, if you believe in such a thing, these kinds of relationships are there to burn away what we no longer need. If you're willing to be yourself, no matter who comes along, you will get a reflection of that. If you believe in such a thing, a soulmate is there to play with you, is there to complement who you are. And when you can admit to yourself that you don't need to do everything on your own, like the last few people have shown me that I still believed, as through their actions, and feeling like and fearing being supported. And they showed me within myself that I still feel like I have to do things on my own and that I can't trust others. So that's who I get. That's who I subconsciously choose, and that's who I spiritually attract and magnetize towards me. And the only way to overcome that is to ask for help, is to allow ourselves, myself, to feel and be supported, to be held accountable by asking for accountability. And it's something new for me, so I can not so much expect, but on a deeper level know that I may get reflections of that based on where I am now. It's my belief that we attract based on the frequency that we're being at that moment. So if I'm still working through things, or if I don't feel like I'm enough because I'm still working through things, then that's who I'm going to get. So if I believe that even though I'm still working through things, I deserve someone who can grow and stay and love me through that growth, through my changes, if they can love the person who stays the same through those changes, and I can do the same for them, then that logically would attract someone who mirrors that. And I felt like I got really close last time. And I feel like I'm getting closer each time. And that gives me hope. If you're looking to heal, get some perspective on some of the beliefs that may be holding you back, heal some of the wounds, love wounds, money wounds, family wounds that you feel maybe on some level intuitively know that are holding you back, hit me up, iamvictory.com/book an appointment. I'd be more than happy. I get joy out of helping people work through those things, because in working through those things, we get to dissolve and neutralize those things and live from that new state of being. And it's wonderful, all the things that we attract in the newer states of being and the higher states of being. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share. That's all for now. Peace.